And it's the 30th of December 2022, 10 a.m. right here in Lagos, Nigeria. And the last episode of Business Morning for 2022 has been great reporting the economy and markets right here. It's been great having you over there watching us. Good morning. Let's kick off now with the markets. We see oil prices edged up today, and we're on track to post their second straight annual gains, albeit modest. A stormy year marked by tight supplies due to the Ukraine war, a strong dollar and weakening demand from world's top crude importers. As China, we saw Brent crude futures rose by 20 cents to $83.66 a barrel in early trade after settling 1.2% down in the previous session. Brent looks set to end the year with a 7.6% gain after jumping 50.2% in 2021. Prices surged in March to a peak of $139.13 a barrel, a level not seen since 2008 after Russia invaded Ukraine, sparking supply and energy security concerns. U.S. WTI crude was at $78.63 a barrel, up 23 cents after closing 0.7% lower. That was yesterday. It's on track to rise 4.5% in 2022, following a 55% gain last year. Analysts say while an increase in year-end holiday travel and Russia's ban on crude and oil product sales are supportive of oil prices, declining consumption due to deteriorating economic environment next year will offset supply tightness. And to other markets now, we see Chicago soybean futures inch lower, consolidating after a rally to a 6-month peak as investors gauged adverse weather for Argentine crops and the consequences of China's dropping of strict COVID-19 measures. Wheat and corn eased from multi-week highs struck in the previous session as traders awaited a clearer assessment of frost damage to U.S. wheat crops, and as mounting COVID-19 infections in China tempered demand hopes. Wheat has rallied in the last week as cold weather gripped the United States, threatening to damage winter wheat crops already weakened by drought. Wheat markets remained capped by Russian competition in export markets, as illustrated by a purchase of 200,000 tons of Russian wheat by Egypt this week. And Robusta coffee futures on ice were lower, weighed partly by an expected pickup in producer sales in coming weeks, while raw sugar prices regained some ground after falling earlier this week. March Robusta coffee LRCC2 fell 0.6% to $1,857 a ton. Dealers noted an expected pickup in sales by farmers in top Robusta producer Vietnam, where the harvest has entered its final stages and is helping to keep a lid on prices. And back here in Nigeria, the journey of Nigeria's federal government infrastructure is a long-time drive with billions of dollars spent. In 2022, the government continues to build on the social infrastructure it started and some inherited projects from previous administrations in the area of power, road, rail, and information and communications technology networks that cover extensive areas of the nation's territory. Our correspondent, Dare Dewu, takes a holistic look at the nation's infrastructure, the gains and the pains of 2022. Take a listen.
Usually capital intensive and on a long-term basis, rail, road, power are critical infrastructure on which vibrant economies are built. Many of the federal projects have been known for many years with different funding options. The federal government says it embarked on the reconstruction of 21 selected federal roads, totaling 1,804.6 kilometers under the Road Infrastructure Development and Refurbishment Investment Tax Credit Policy. Tax credit scheme, one of the funding options, allows companies to invest billions of naira in constructing over 1,500-kilometer critical roads in key economic corridors. One of the landmark projects of the Buhari administration is the construction of 1.6 Second Niger Bridge linking Anambra and Delta states with 10.3-kilometer highway. Earlier in the month, The bridge was open to vehicular movement, and motorists can now use the infrastructure till January next year.
The target date is somewhere April, May, but these dates keep shifting, and people must remember that on the eastern side, our contractors have not been able to work on Mondays for almost 2 years. We've lost 52 days of construction. Where do you make that up? And then we've also had some challenges that we had to overcome in terms of timelines. For example, we had to relocate all the transmission lines connecting the east to the west across that river. All of them had to be moved. So again, we lost some days because the power company had to shut down. They had contracts to supply energy. They had contracts to take gas. So all of these things are unseen.
On rail infrastructure, the administration completed a 326-kilometer Itakpe-Ajaokuta-Warri rail line and other supporting facilities. And in the southwest, the 156-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge rail line modernization project is operational. This year, the political climate changed a few portfolios, and at the Ministry of Transport, power changed hands. Muazu Sambo replaced Rotimi Amechi. The new minister says any administration that comes on board will continue with the railway modernization program.
A lot of them are there to feel and touch. This is a train. This train was not available before this administration. Is it not a fact? Can anybody deny that? So these are the things this government has achieved. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway that had defied 16 years of PDP administration is almost completed. Correct? The second Niger bridge that has defied every administration before Muhammadu Buhari is going to be commissioned before the end of this year. The second Niger bridge. The deep sea port, the Lekki deep sea port is there, conceived and constructed under this administration.
Social infrastructure connects households across cities to higher quality opportunities in employment, education, healthcare, and obviously the mobility of persons and goods. In 2022, like in recent years, there are success stories and also setbacks in building infrastructure for public use. The attack on Kaduna-Abuja train, a critical transport infrastructure, posed a major threat to the nation's security and peace. The effect on the economy is also immeasurable. There are obvious pains and gains. How can the nation leverage and sustain the efforts made so far?
When the Buhari administration came to power, there was no transition plan from the PDP government. Nothing at all to build upon. And we felt it was wrong. And we needed to correct it. It's part of governance. Even if you are handing over to an opposition party, give them something to build upon. Okay? We as government is a what? A continuum, like Chief Obafemi Awolowo had of blessed memory always held. He said, government is a continuum. So you must prepare the next coming government.
Also in 2022, a significant progress is registered in the 63 million euros deal between the federal government and Siemens. The first set of mobile power transformers are delivered. With a new year, a new administration in view, the country's public debt burden continues to rise steadily, increasing by 16% on a year-on-year basis, with some parts used to finance capital projects, hoping that this social infrastructure translates to better living standards for the people. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
And as 2022 winds down, let's take a look at keywords as buzzwords that resonated with the Nigerian economy in 2022. And to help us unpack these words, we have Mr. Sam Chidoka, MD, Kairos Capital, join us in the studio. It's great to have you, and we made it. We're almost there, but
almost there.
We made it this far.
A few hours to go.
Yes, and it's great that we do have a lot to be thankful for.
Sure.
You know, even though it's been a challenging year, thank God we have life.
More than anything else.
All right, so let's drill down on the words now. The first one, geopolitics. Yeah, Russia, Ukraine.
So, I mean, we started the year with people anticipating there will be another variant of COVID.
Right.
And whilst that was going on, Russia invaded Ukraine. And so COVID became secondary. And that became the major issue that affected commodities pricing, affected in fact, the deceleration we've seen in international economies is because of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. So whilst it happened thousands of miles away, it's affected almost every part of the country because of price of commodities. Some countries hit worse than others. Ghana hit worse than Nigeria, but we're feeling the pinch as well.
And obviously, you know, with geopolitics, that wasn't really expected. You know, when we were forecasting from 2021, that came about and also did a wonder, you know, for most economies. And we saw currencies also suffer,
Yep.
you know, because of this. But the next buzzword now, the dreaded I word that has been with us, first of all, it started by being transitory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that word was going around. That was 2021. Then it became embedded
Yes.
in 2022, talking about inflation.
Inflation.
Yeah. And we started at 15.6%
Yep.
in Nigeria in January, and now we're at 21.47%.
And so the thing about inflation is that, again, the inflation we have in Nigeria is not demand-side inflation, but supply-side inflation, right? There are different types of inflation. What we have is mainly imported inflation. So again, you go back to geopolitics. Once the war in Ukraine and Russia started, prices of commodities went up. We're import dependent, and so we imported that inflation. Now, add that to the fact that we also had other causative issues happening in Nigeria. So header farmers issues happening, insecurity issues around the food basket, affected issues around the kind of harvest we had. And so price of food items went up. Then we had flooding in that same food bank area, and that affected harvest as well. Then general insecurity that slowed down business in the southeast, in the northeast, and kidnapping on the rise. People can no longer go to the farms. So when you sum all of this, Russia, Ukraine, internal problems, you can see why we are at 21.47% inflation. However, the reason we are 21.47 is because we still have fuel subsidy. Take away fuel subsidy, you probably have 300 to 400 basis points more inflation in Nigeria.
And looking at, still talking about geopolitics, now, is there a way we would have set up, you know, the economy? Are there things we would have done that would have been some kind of buffer to what, you know, happened globally?
Oh, yeah, sure. Surely we've been, I mean, in 2008, there was the global economic crisis. But we had a buffer. We had reserves that could cater for it. And we're able to ride that wind. While many countries went into recession, Nigeria didn't. But today we don't. So if you think about it, our foreign reserves has actually tanked. It's gone south. So I think we started somewhere around $40 billion at the beginning of the year. We're somewhere around $36 billion right now. So we just don't have the buffer. What we could have done right was to have had savings for the rainy day. But remember that we've been borrowing, like borrowing was going out of business. And so our debt service ratios were going up. Debt to revenue in 2021 touched 96%. So that means that for every dollar we made, we spent 96 cents paying debt. So we now didn't have room to wriggle. So once geopolitics hit us, we're in a fix.
Quite a fix. And also related to inflation, another buzzword, hikes, and more towards interest rate hikes. And obviously, we saw the Fed, you know, leading the pack with the rate hikes.
So what happened was that the Fed, of course, they had no option but to do those rate hikes. And then, of course, capital flight happened. Once the Fed began to raise rates, the hedge funds and asset managers who were investing in countries like Nigeria or emerging markets where they were getting decent returns, they started flight to safety. They started going back home with their funds, right? And then internally as well, we started responding. NPR started going up. Consecutively, we've increased NPR at almost every MPC meeting that has held in recent time. And so you expected that hike to happen. Why were we increasing NPR? To tame inflation? Because all of these are interconnected and related. However, it hasn't worked. We've had 10 consecutive months of increase in inflation. And the simple reason is, whilst we are hiking NPR, The same central bank is funding the federal government through ways and means with over 20 trillion naira. With 20 trillion naira released into the economy, and you're still trying to reduce money in circulation, it's like opening the tap in one place and locking it in another place. It just doesn't work. So are we still going to see hikes? As long as inflation continues to go up, you expect that rate hikes will happen.
And taking you back, to the Fed. Now, we did see the U.S. dollar rally, this year, due to the Fed, getting really tight,
Yes.
With the economy. But there is this talk about the dollar actually peaking. Do you think the dollar has peaked?
It depends on which currency you compare it to the naira. It hasn't peaked, right? I do not think the dollar has peaked. If you study the history of how the dollar has always performed, there's always that story about the dollar peaking, the story about moving away from the dollar. But the U.S. has just found a way to become the economic, policeman of the world, and making sure, like the Bretton Woods institution started, that the dollar is a rallying currency from which every other currency derives value, right? I do not think so. I think that the U.S. Fed will continue to do everything to strengthen the dollar.
And we'll still see, obviously, the next word, devaluation. That was another buzzword right here in Nigeria. We've seen the naira in the parallel market, hit incredible highs, and there was speculation, about 1,000 naira to the dollar at some point. How you seen?
Well, so they are related. They're twins: devaluation and depreciation. Because what we've seen more is more of depreciation of the currency than the devaluation. The devaluation is the official, reduction in the value of the currency, but depreciation is market-driven. So what we've seen more is actually the depreciation of the currency. In 2022, the naira has lost circa 18%. Between 2015 and 2022, the naira has lost over 50% in value, especially the parallel market, right? So we've seen that depreciation simply because it's related to revenue. In 2022, the government projected that revenue was going to be 10 trillion naira in the budget. As at August, we had done just below 4 trillion naira. If you prorate it, we're supposed to be doing somewhere around 6.6 trillion naira, but we had done less than 4 trillion naira as at August in revenue, meaning that the central bank just doesn't have the dollar, right, to support the currency. Because all that's happening to the currency is the demand for the dollar. And once the central bank doesn't have the dollar to support the currency, you're going to see depreciation. And at some point, you're going to see devaluation. So that's the word that has come. And until our revenue sources, especially FX revenue sources, which is mainly oil and gas, until it receives some curative or some cure, as the case may be, I do not see us walking away from further depreciation. But thank God we didn't get to $1,000.
Right.
1,000 naira
Thank
to the
God
dollar.
we didn't get to 1,000 naira. And
Yeah.
still, related to the central bank, we did have that issue about the DSS trying to, arrest the CBN governor, and obviously that was quite incredible. And I'm wondering how investors, international investors, actually see that kind of news.
So that's not good news for Nigeria at all, in any form, shape, or guise. It's not good news. When we do things like this, it's like tantamount to shooting ourselves in the foot. Especially with the fact that we've allowed it to linger as a rumor. He's not been arrested. He's not even in the country. Some say he cannot come back. Now, I read yesterday there's a court injunction restraining them from arresting him. Just imagine yourself being a non-Nigerian and having $1 million that you were thinking of investing in Nigeria. The first thing you do is, let me wait until they sort out themselves. Because, when the central bank governors of many countries cough, the market reacts. Now, our central bank governor is not even in Nigeria. So, without joining issues with what seems like a lot of politics and a lot of rumors and here and there, it's not good for the country.
Definitely not good. And obviously, we'll see that impact in the bonds, in our bonds markets. Let's talk about another one now. This is even still big right now. Redesign. The Naira redesign, the great redesign.
Well, so with the redesign, I think, so again, what the central bank is trying to do, from my read, is again to control currency in circulation. When you redesign the currency, you pull back the old currency. So what happens is that all the currency outside the banking system comes back into the banking system. Then the central bank has control of currency in circulation. You can actually tell this is the currency in circulation, this is where it is, and all of that. And then you can manage inflation, right? So there's been so many issues, especially the politics of it and all of that. And again, I'm not a politician. I don't want to go into the politics. But on the finance part of it, is a good move. Some people have criticized it in terms of cost. I do not think it's about cost. You need to know the currency in circulation. As the central bank, you need to control your currency, right? And if the central bank says over time, we now no longer have control over currency in circulation, and there is so much happening outside the banking sector, the redesign is the right way to go, is the right thing to do, right way to go to control the currency question and currency in circulation.
How are you seeing adoption going forward for the new Naira?
So that's going to be tricky. When you deal with a nation that has so many people who are not knowledgeable enough, when you have high illiteracy levels, when you have so many in the informal sector and the villages and all of that, it's going to be tough. It's going to take some time, but adoption would happen. At the outset, in the rural areas, you're not going to have so much of adoption. But in the urban areas, adoption will be quicker. The central bank governor had said the banks will start loading their ATMs with the new currency. I've used the ATM in recent time. I haven't seen the new currency
I
yet.
actually used the ATM this morning. I pulled out, a couple of Naira, and the old notes came out.
Yes.
But I got one new note.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Congratulations.
just one. Yeah, it was quite incredible. I felt so lucky.
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't felt it yet. I haven't physically touched the new currency. And I think I've used the ATM in a couple of days ago, right? So it's going to take some time for adoption to happen. And there needs to be...
But is it so wrong to let both, both currencies, run through, for a while before the old notes are actually pulled out?
Yeah, I think that's what they're doing already. It's going to be in circulation until the old notes...
With no limits, because if you see the way the UK is doing it,
yes.
There's no time limit for both currencies running.
So with the UK, our reason is different. We're doing this to know the currency in circulation, to have control over inflation, help in somewhat to fight corruption. Right.
So it's not just about
It's not just about...
vote buying.
Well, that's another elephant in the room, vote buying in the elections. So if you put all the things, if you sum it all together, it's not a bad thing to do. And I do not think that what the CBN is doing is wrong. I'm not one of those who will criticize them for doing it. All I'm saying is make the new notes available and do a lot of enlightenment, especially in the rural areas, so that adoption is easy.
All right, another buzzword is obviously queues. But now I want you to, look back and tell me the wins for the Nigerian economy in 2022.
So tailwinds, we've spoken about most of them. Inflation. We've seen our GDP not grow at the rate at which we expect. Good part is that we haven't entered another recession. In Q1, I think our GDP was about 3.1% growth. In Q2, it was 3.5%. In Q3, it came down to 2.5%. The World Bank had projected that we'll do about 3%, 3.2% year end. It doesn't seem like if Q4 is anything like Q3, it doesn't seem like it will be. So we've had growth issues, we've had inflation issues, we've had insecurity issues, we've had depreciation, devaluation of the currency, we've had growth in unemployment. The reports that came out about unemployed people in the economy, especially youth unemployment, is quite alarming. We've had growth in poverty. The report also on poverty by MBS was also alarming. And so we've had, the tailwinds haven't been good. We're hopeful that entering 2023, we'll start to do some things right. But
so the economy didn't have any wins?
Wins. So the stock market was a win.
Okay.
The stock market.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of wins, the stock market. We started the year at 22 trillion naira market cap. We're ending the year at 26 trillion naira. That's a gain of 4 trillion naira in the capital market. All share index was 42,000 basis points. Is now 49,000 basis points.
I think we thought 50 yesterday.
Yeah,
50,000. Yeah.
Somewhere around 49,000 right now. If you check that, this is around 15% growth.
Right.
So if your portfolio returned 15%, that's decent.
Even though it didn't beat inflation.
It didn't beat inflation.
Right.
But at least you're doing better than what we did in previous years. Exactly. And as a matter of fact, we are one of the best performing stock markets in the world.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a win.
That's a win. Quite a big win.
I honestly can't think of any other win.
All right. Well, we look forward to 2023, and obviously to be fun, reporting the uncertainties coming up in 2020. But we do hope for the best. We do hope for more profit going forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam Chidoka, MD, Kairos Capital. It was great having this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's head on to the markets now. Let's see the way Bitcoin and the altcoins are looking. Well, the Bitcoin, the crypto market doesn't close. So obviously, this market is going to stay open even up to the 31st of December. Let's see the fear greed index, 28 points. It's still fear in this market right now, the crypto space. We're still seeing fear, we're still seeing traders cautious about, going into this market, even though 2022 is winding down right now. Let's look at the market cap this morning, still below the $800 billion level, down 0.26%. And we see the volume traded this morning is down just 6.65%. Bitcoin dominance sitting at 40.14%. We've seen Bitcoin staying quite stable this year, not dominating the altcoins. Let's look at the what's it called now? Yesterday performance of Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, that's Binance Token, XRP. For the year, we've seen Bitcoin there down 64% from the last high, about $40,000 there. We see Ethereum. Ethereum was trading about $3,000 at the beginning of this year. It's down 68%. Bigger move down than Bitcoin year to date. And we see Binance Token there. We know Binance has had a couple of issues this year with the whole FTX contagion and trying to find out if the exchanges were still very liquid, especially Binance, even though it's one of the biggest exchanges in the world. It's down 53%. That's a token. It was trading last about $400, but now it's down to $244, and wondering if this $200 mark is going to hold going forward. See XRP there. It's trading at 33 cents. It's down 59% right now, year to date. That's talking about XRP. So seeing massive losses in these markets. Let's bring in Michael Najin, our financial market analyst. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Eddie.
Great to have you, Michael, and compliments of the season. So we're still going to do, the buzzwords that, drove the crypto market. And the first one I'm going to start with is bankruptcy. That was the major event for this year, from FTX, Luna, all of that. How are you seeing it, Michael?
Yeah, it was a pretty eye-opening year. There's a saying, once the tide goes out, you see who was swimming naked the whole time. And that's exactly what we saw this year. Once all of the crazy valuations, once all the hot money system dissipated, we finally were able to see A, who was insolvent, and B, who was a flat-out criminal. So it was really an eye-opener from the likes of SBF going under, something that no one ever really did see coming. A bunch of MIT grads running a billion-dollar enterprise that everyone thought was legit, to the members of 3 Hours Capital, Kyle and Suzu, carting away with $3.5 billion of investor money, and Celsius going under. The numerous amounts of bankruptcies that happened this year that no one really, I guess you could have seen coming when you understand the amount of leverage that's in the space, but no one, and as well with Genesis as well, potentially having to go through some kind of bankruptcy procedure, being like, the smartest ones in the room. It's been a very eye-opening year. I think a lot of the trust that crypto has earned since 2018 has evaporated, unfortunately. We're going to have to build back better. It's not something that investors are going to forget. Because, for instance, in the FTX situation, you have the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund. They invested, or the Ontario Pension Fund, sorry, not the Ontario Pension Fund. They invested in FTX, and they lost I think it was a $35 million investment that they lost. So you're gonna see a lot of institutional interest in crypto dwindle because of the people who've been hurt so far. It's not going to be an easy thing to come back from.
I
The
can
only
just
positive
imagine.
thing in regards to bankruptcies that I see is it's probably going to push more people, especially institutions, towards custodying Bitcoin rather than trying to make investments in things within the ecosystems like exchanges and all sorts of things. Most institutions now most likely will realize that the safest play in crypto that is a risky asset class is to buy and hold the predominant asset, which is Bitcoin, putting that on your balance sheet, custodying it yourself, and that would eliminate you from 90 to 99% of all the risk that we saw this year from bankruptcy. It's funny
Right.
because the Ontario Pension Fund, if they had just simply bought Bitcoin, this would have never happened. And the same goes for the litany of investors who were in FTX.
All right. Another big buzzword this year in the crypto space, the bear market. And obviously, we've seen the monthly. I looked at the monthly RSI, and I saw that it was so oversold. It went even lower than the last time. I think last time was about 46 points or thereabout, but now it's gone even lower. Do you think that bottom all investors have been searching for, is it close?
I can't say for sure if a bottom is close or not, but what I can say is historically, like you just said with the RSI on a monthly time scale, we've never seen it this low. This is the lowest it's ever been. So if you are someone who's going to be in this space for a long time, you got to ask yourself, A, do I think Bitcoin's going to die? And B, it's not going to die. Like, when do I think it's going to come back? And the difference between when I think it's going to come back, do I start buying now? I really do think that at the end of the day, Bitcoin's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. But in terms of finding a bottom, I think this is kind of it. Like I said before previously on the program, you can expect maybe a 50% drawdown, maybe 60, 70%. But I think your downside really here is limited. Like what are we looking at really? Like going down $8,000 Bitcoin versus when we were at 40 or 50,000, that represented a $20,000 downturn from those highs. I really do think the risk to reward ratio here is excellent. And in terms of shooting some hope that we can rebound from this. I think these levels are excellent for
Right.
anyone who puts themselves here for the long term, meaning 2 to 5 year hold, not like a quarter or two.
Right, I guess it's oversold on most levels at this point, talking about Bitcoin. But thank you so much
It's literally oversold on every single thing, Laddie.
on
I've never seen
every
it
time.
oversold.
That's incredible.
So so if you want to buy, it's just like you got to ask yourself, like even if it goes lower, like how much lower could it really go? I really do think we're in for a melt up. Most people aren't in position for us to go up. A lot of people are like, it's going to go lower, but I think the market's going to come for their pound of flesh.
Exactly, with
Take
the number
everyone
of
else.
times Bitcoin has actually died since its existence. All right,
Yeah,
Michael. Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. It was great having your perspective today, looking at the buzzwords that shaped the crypto space. And I'll see you in 2023. Thank you, Michael.
thank you. Hopefully we have some kind of bull market.
Exactly. All right, Michael, thank you so much.
See ya.
So that was Michael
Bye.
there giving us the details of what to expect going into 2023. And we've seen the performance there, year-to-date performance, all down. I'm sure Will have better news for us. She's going to come in now and tell us what's been happening in the Nigerian equities market. And let's see who the winners.
Yes, looking at what you have here is like a bad news for the Bitcoin market or the crypto market.
Oh my goodness, the crypto market
Do you see
this
the
year.
green? Do you see the green?
But
Do you see the green light?
Like right here, if you invested here, you're good.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You should have just
This is
moved
fun.
over. You should have just moved over, laddie. This is the
I'm
green.
everywhere. I just report the market.
So the market closed yesterday on a very bullish note. We're all seeing it, 0.73%, really strongly for the penultimate trading day of the final trading day week of the year. Now we have 50,000 level. We hit the 50K level, crossed it, and above, expectations actually. Now at the 27 trillion naira mark, and that's a huge win for the market. Now let's see the stocks that moved the market yesterday. We had Geregu. Geregu hit 10% yesterday. Its stock price rose to 139 from 127 naira, and that's a huge one for investors who actually cashed into that stock. MTN Nigeria was one of the movers yesterday. Its stock price grew 0.47% yesterday. We also saw Nestle doing wonders yesterday. It hit 10% and closed at 1,100 naira in yesterday's trading session. We're also going to see the sectors and see how they performed yesterday. Oh yes, that's why we have it all in the green. It's a sea of green yesterday: banking, consumer goods, industrial, insurance, oil and gas. Now the big thing is that consumer goods and the oil and gas hit triple-digit gains yesterday. It's 3.65% and 2.82%. Insurance also triple-digit gains, but mostly this is a penny stock. But we have consumer goods and oil and gas doing so much. O&O contributed to this 2.8% we have here, and consumer goods we had Nestle doing the wonders in that place as well. So we're going to talk to the year-to-date gain. Now, before we go to our guests, we're going to talk about the year-to-date gains. Now, let's see our year, the top gainers, the top performers for the year. Yes, Multiverse. Multiverse gained over 1,890, about 1,890%. Its share price grew from the start of the year. It was at 20 kobo, and it moved on to 3 naira 98 kobo. We also have Maya, which was at 46 kobo at the start of the year. Right now, we're seeing it at 2 naira 27 kobo. That's massive growth of over 390% there. And now we have Wima Bank, which is also at 76 kobo at the start of the year. Now we have 3 naira 54 kobo. Very, very massive performance for these stocks. Now we're going to see those that underperformed for the year. We have Regal Insurance, opening at 51 kobo to close at 25 kobo, more than half of its share price lost during the year. We have Curveton, which started at 1 naira 72 kobo and closing at 90 kobo, and Livestock, which opened at 130, closing at 77 naira 60 kobo. Not a good run for these stocks, but we're hoping that the new year they're going to have a better performance, a better outing, and investors probably look into that and invest more in those stocks. We're going to talk to Richard Akimoladu, equity trader, CSL Stockbrokers, to give us more insight and also to talk about the buzzwords, talk about the recurring words that shaped the equities market, especially trading for most of the listed companies. Good morning, Richard. It's good to have you on the program.
Good morning, Wheels. Thanks for having me for the last trading day of the year.
It's good to have you, Richard. Richard, during the year, we had a lot of listed companies had one or two words that kept recurring when they talked about the struggle to meet, especially high dividend payouts or possibly make high profits. One of the words was high cost of operations. Can you tell us more about that and how that affected these companies, and if their dividends were a reflection of this term?
Thank you, Will. So, as you mentioned, during the course of the year, as you know, that the year was full of a lot of headwinds, and some of the listed entities, especially consumer goods, they tried to find a way around. All witnesses that there was a high cost of sale, high cost of doing business due to some of the factors that some of your guests has mentioned. During the course of the year, we saw the war between Russia and Ukraine having an effect on the distribution channels of so many listed entities. In terms of the raw material, we recorded an increase in price of raw material and cost of doing business. As you know, that most of these listed entities, especially consumer goods, they run their plants on diesel, and we witnessed a very significant increase in the price of diesel. So this have a significant impact on the cost of doing business. So we saw that cost of sales were on the high side throughout the year, but for some of these entities, they were able to actually navigate this headwind, and some of them, what they did was to produce in sachet form so that they can reach the low people at the bottom of the pyramid, and still they were able to actually pay dividend. Some of them that paid interim, they were able to pay dividend, though we did not see significant improvement. At least they maintained the level of dividend that they used to pay.
So what about inflation? We also had inflation and interest rate hikes dominating transactions, especially people saying, oh, they need to make profits above inflation rate. Were they able to do that?
Yeah, if you look at year-to-date for the market now, we are one of the market that was able to record at least positive outlook from your earlier report, 17.8% year-to-date return of the market. Inflation do have a negative impact on investors, as you know that as your real return will be impacted by high inflation. And as at November, we have the inflation figure from at 21.47%, and this has negative impact on return for investors. But if you look at the blue chips companies, they've been able to actually bring good returns to investors due to low prices, the like of Airtel, MTN. Due to low prices, at least investors, they've been able to have a better return on some of these names.
Okay, so Richard, we're hoping that in 2023 we see inflation peaking possibly, and maybe investors having more returns on their investment. Thank you so much, Richard Akimoladun, equity trader, CSL Stockbrokers Limited.
Yeah, so that's it, man.
We're
best performing stock market right there, regardless of
inflation. It still outperformed many
Fantastic.
stock market. The U.S. stock market didn't do any better.
Thank you so much.
And you know, you heard about the EU stocks, you know, doing the worst since 2018.
Exactly.
So
big ups to the NGX.
Big ups to the NGX, Laddie.
All right, now let's head on now to the UK. We have Juliana standing by right there. Let's check the buzzwords that shaped the UK economy in 2022. Great to have you, Juliana, and it's the last one for the year 2022. And it's been great reporting it with you, Juliana. But the first word I'll start with is the monarch. We know what happened earlier with Queen Elizabeth there, losing the longest-serving monarch in the UK. She reigned for 70 years. Quite incredible.
It is quite incredible. And can I just say, it's been an absolute pleasure sharing my mornings with you, Laddie, Will, Inni and Aniete, and it has been a pretty interesting 2022. Lots of doom and gloom reporting, which is quite commonplace now when it comes to the business world, and there have been highs and lows in the UK. But as you said, I think we've got to start with the biggest story of the year, which was the death on September the 8th of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. It sent shockwaves around the world. Yes, she was in her late 90s, but as you said, the longest serving monarch in the world, and she contributed billions to the UK economy. Whether or not you like or loathe the royal family, they are certainly a crowd puller, and they do bring in so much money. So now I think going into 2023, we're just wondering what King Charles II can do to make sure that Britain's soft power remains in place. We've lost so much of our soft power. Of course, following the 2016 July Brexit referendum, lots of people said that Britain is becoming insular. So we do hope that the royal family will manage to garner the crowds and the adoration which was obviously brought in by the late Her Queen. But considering we've got Spare, the pretty controversial book by Prince Harry, the now ousted Prince Harry, coming out in January, I expect there'll be more controversial headlines in the weeks and months to come.
All right, and Juliana, the next word, obviously, that rocked the UK, energy.
Energy, yes, of course, not just here in the UK, but across the world, following the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Energy costs, huge issue in the UK. If you just think about it, Liz Truss, she was only in power for 6 weeks, but at least she managed to put in place that energy price guarantee of £2,500. Sounds small considering prices could have risen to up to £5,000 a year. But if you go back to this time last year, Laddie, energy prices were about £1,000 a year. So one of the reasons why cost of living is such a huge issue in the UK is because of those energy prices. We do hope that they will come down sometime soon, but considering there doesn't appear to be any peace efforts brokered on the table at the moment, I think energy is likely to be a buzzword that we talk about this time in 2023.
Obviously, we'll be looking forward to the surprises of 2023, and we obviously expect that it's going to be a great year. I'm optimistic about 2023, Juliana. I know it's going to be great, and it's obviously been an incredible 2022. But Juliana, you're going to stand by. You know, we're going to do the tradition, how we do it, you know, every end of year, how we end the show for the end of the year. And we're going to be calling in the team, the ones that you see and the ones that you don't see. And first off, I'm going to call in Ini John Mekwa.
So I come bearing gifts, Laddie.
Thank you.
I come bearing gifts for you because I know you've been so busy doing business.
Exactly. This should help me, you know, quench my thirst.
Exactly. And I think right behind me is the head of presentation, Mrs. Joke Rogers. We see you every year on Business Morning. One of these days, you're going to have to present Business Morning.
Oh, count me out.
And of course,
you guys are doing a great job. I think I'll leave it to you.
Then we have the rest. You know, Channels is a very gender-friendly, female-friendly. So we have a camera person who is a lady. Bidemi is here. She's here almost every day, Monday to Friday. We have an engineer, Sekinat, also a female. So you can imagine when you talk about gender balancing and all of that. So from the top to the bottom, we do have representation, but we will not cheat the men. So of course, we do have the camera people who are also, we have Femi, he's in the camera. And then we have at the back end, a lot of people are involved in production, as you can imagine. We have the VTR, we have the TriCaster, we have the director, we have so many people. So we have them all join in. Larry is the VTR, we have the engineer, another engineer male. And then the face that you know, of course, you have Will. Introduction. She was just here some minutes ago, you know, joining in. So this is just a representative of the people who make this show happen. Yes, and certainly. We're here to say thank you so much. Thank you to you, our viewers, because you were not there. We couldn't be talking to ourselves. It wouldn't really make any sense. And then we did not have Mrs. Rogers, who would roster us and who would take up this and take up this. Tell us, how much trouble do we give you during the year? You have to juggle. You have the stock market. You have the business incorporated. You have the business news at 10. And sometimes we're like, no, this person is not available.
And I say, well, the person must be available.
We have to make it work.
We have to make it work. The show must go on, whatever it takes, you know, whoever we have. We're a team and we got our backs, each other's backs. We do what we have to do to get this job done. And, you know, where, you know, it's not so rosy.
And if we know our chairman, you don't have to do it. You do it well, professionally.
Professionally. We're professionals in this place.
So we cannot thank our chairman and a vice chairman enough, Dr. John Momo and his beautiful and professional, beautiful wife, Mrs. Shola Momo, always there watching our back. You know you cannot do it wrong. You know you cannot miss it.
You can't afford to.
You might just get a knock. You don't know where the help is coming from.
And then we have a UK team.
Yes, and of course we have Juliana always there for us. Hi, Juliana.
Where is she?
Hi, everybody.
There you are.
Hi.
You know what they say? You know what they say? You know what they say? You can never carry last.
No.
I love that, Inni. I can't see you, unfortunately, though I can hear you. I just want to say thank you. I also want to thank the team here. Femi, our senior engineer, Jessica, our producer, Javed, Daniel, Simon Pusey, Teniola. They're not here at the moment, but I do want to say that I'm so fortunate and grateful to be working with the hardest working team at Channels. Yes, I said it, the hardest working team, the most dedicated team, always friendly, always a smile. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I sincerely mean that from the bottom of my heart. We never have any issues, and you are so dedicated, and I'm so grateful. Thank you all so much for your support and your patience, and for making our jobs in London absolutely easy. Cheers to a prosperous 2023, and I also, of course, want to thank the chairman and the vice chairman for their vote of confidence and their support always. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliana.
Oh, Juliana, always making sure that we don't just know the locals, but we know the international.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. So let's call a toast to you out there, always being there for us Monday to Friday, even on Saturdays during Capital Market. We do appreciate your time. We do appreciate you joining on the program. You make us important, and so we are grateful to you. And even to our viewers in the UK, represented by Juliana, always carrying us along.
Channels Business
We say
Global.
cheers. 2023 will be better.
Cheers. Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye devaluation.
Bye-bye.
Juliana, there you go. Let's cheers to Juliana over there.
Juliana.
Juliana.
Yes.
This is for you.
She's right there behind you.
Yes.
She's behind you.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
so much, and see you next year.
Thank you so much. See you next year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.